very charming man. Sometimes you felt as though he was bowing to you as a gentleman. But he once noticed the fact that when I wasn't working in the baby pool, I had a book with me. I always loved to read. And so I would pull this out, and if you ever see me in the doctor's office now, you'll know I have a book with me always. But I love books so much that I didn't want to dog-ear the pages, some people do. So he saw me taking little pieces of an old newspaper or something and sticking it in the book so I wouldn't lose my place. So one day he said, I'll make you a bookmark. And I have a picture of the bookmark. Now, my 96-year-old brain put it in a safe place, and it's so savvy. But Brian and Neil took a picture of my house in 2000. I knew where it was in 2000. And so this bookmark shows the one that he did for me when I was working at the swimming pool. But my memory of him, that he was a very kind, polite gentleman. People that I hadn't been introduced to until I got to college and met a few of the college professors that might have some of the characteristics. So I became interested in him, but that's really my only personal contact, is these times that we talked when I wasn't working outside in the pool. And he did talk about books, some of which I knew, and I was glad that he knew some of them too. Now, if I may quote some of this 1938 article, I don't know what you're going to say about him, but it says he was born in 1905 of American German parentage. But when he was very young, they sent him back to Germany because they wanted to protect a substantial inheritance there. And they wanted him to grow up there, but he said, unfortunately, World War II evaporated the inheritance, so I don't know that he ever had it. But he did live in Germany most of his growing up years. And this article from '38 gives the college that he graduated from, the art academy that he attended. Also, it's contrary to something that you had, that he came to Southern Illinois as a writer in this writer's project that you're talking about. But he was sent here.
No, that was later.
He was sent here to do historical data on Southern Illinois. And I don't know why he decided to land in Harrisburg, but the story of this picture relates to that, because he did have money, unlike most of the faculty members of this college in the hills, because according to that article and to what I was always told, he had a Guggenheim Fellowship. So he had some money, plus he had a little bit of money from the WPA book project. At any rate, he roomed with Joe and Juanita Doris, and it might be that name could be familiar to some of you people. They lived in the block on McKinley Street, very close to where the old Leitner Hospital was. And I was fortunate enough when I grew old enough to get married, that I married a fellow who was a history buff. And so we were both charter members of the Saline County Historical Society, and my husband was always trying to find things that related to the history of Southern Illinois. And he found out that this penny cent that we'd always talked about had roomed with Joe and Juanita Doris. So we knew them, and by that time Joe was no longer living, but Juanita was still living. And when he started talking to her one day, she said, well, you know, there's some junk in my basement that Penny Cent left here when he left. And said, I mentioned it to him, and that he wasn't taking everything, and he said, oh, that's just junk, just throw it away. But my husband, of course, wanted to see that junk. He liked other people's junk. So we went down, he went down in the basement and began going through it. And there were 2 watercolors. One of them is this, and the other he gave to a very good friend of ours, and to Fred Armstead. Maybe some of you remember that name. Because Fred was then writing his history of the college in the hills, and he was very interested in the painting. From my standpoint, I'm sorry it turned out that way, because it was the better painting. But he gave it to Fred, and what happened to it? Did you ever contact the girl whose address I gave you?
I've not spoke to her yet.
Okay. I don't know what happened to it after the Armsteads died over they had 2 daughters and all, and one of them is living now in Indianapolis. So I have no idea what happened to that other painting. But it was similar in character to this thing, which was a watercolor of Southern Illinois. But this one shows the effects of being in the basement for a while, because there's some little defects on it that looks as though they're either mold or damp. But anyway, my husband thought it merited a barn board frame, so that's why it has the barn board. That is something I treasure, whether it's a fine painting or not. And it certainly is completely different from the style of painting that he did in New York. And if I'm not taking too much time, he coined a word for his futuristic art. He called it chromorphs. C-R-O-M-O-R-F-S, chromorphs, from 2 Greek words, chro meaning color, and morphos meaning shape. So it was shaped by color, not by what your eye might see if you were looking at the cabin in the hills or the mountains, but what his brain was showing him. And one of those pictures from that 38 one, unfortunately, is just black and white, but it shows you what his idea of the chromorphs would have been. And you can just imagine the colors that he had in that. Your painting is closer to that than this one, but still far away. But what happened to the other one, I have no idea about. But I do know that the story circulated that he was a fine diver in our swimming pool. I don't remember ever seeing him dive. If I did, if I was in the baby pool, I was having to watch the little kids, and if I was upstairs, I was having to take in the money and the clothes and see that they got showers. So I don't remember seeing him dive, but he must have impressed some other people in town. He always seemed to be kind, and was trying to teach these little boys that he brought there to be polite and to observe the rules. But I have another, I guess I'll call it a myth. I'm not sure. After this article appeared in our daily paper, I got a telephone call from the sister of a man who's no longer living, of course. That's the story of most of our myths. And this was her brother, who was in the U.S. Army in World War II. And according to the story that he told his family later, after he got home from the war, and I'm reading between the lines. Her story was that he was in a house in Germany after World War II. So I'm presuming that he may have gone in with the army and they were circulating among the German houses. I don't know. But to his surprise, he looked up at the wall of a house he was in, and there was a picture of Penny Cent in a frame on the wall. So he told his family this, but now I'm telling it was a telephone call and it was a myth, I'm sure. But I like to believe, if you believe Penny Cent was a German spy, then I'd like to believe that story. If you don't believe he was a German spy, forget it. But I still thought it was interesting, and it shows that stories circulated about Penny Cent long after he left Harrisburg.
I was going to ask you, Lucyella, my father's 90 years old, and he also remembers Penny Cent as a boy growing up in Harrisburg. And his strongest memory of him is seeing him riding around town everywhere on his bicycle.
Oh,
He
yes,
says
he
that
did.
ultra-thin tires, a very rarity in that day.
Yeah.
Do you recall that?
He'd ride around to the swimming pool to pay their entrance, but he was riding his bike. He didn't drive down in a fancy car.
Well, thank you, Ms. Foster.